A top 3 matchup, you say? Why, that's the perfect amount of things to talk about on the podcast daily. It's Thursday. It's a 3 Things Thursday. That's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. Ohio State at Oregon, Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern time on NBC. Can't wait. Full travel day is ahead of us on Thursday for the podcast crew. Him and me going out there. And Berm's ready. Physically, he's never been in better shape to make this trip.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. I mean, the nice thing is that we're going to get to Portland early on Thursday, have a chance to explore the culture, get maybe a grilled cheese at a food truck somewhere, knock out some
world famous
breaks.
Portland grilled cheeses.
We're going to go to the big rose garden there because we're just both such fans of roses. It's beautiful. Are we doing road breaks on Thursday night tonight, or are we doing them Friday?
Which would you prefer? Sounds like, Friday's the tradition.
It is a Friday tradition for sure. We're going to have to, because Oregon has set this up in a way that apparently they weren't ready for a large contingent of media coverage. We have to actually drive to Eugene on Friday to just pick up a parking pass and then drive back. So, we don't know how long all that's going to happen, how long that's going to take. But yeah, it'll be road breaks on Friday night from our hotel in Salem, which is where they held those witch trials.
That's absolutely right, partner. Yeah, Oregon, I don't know. I'm starting to get a little nervous that it's going to be a negative notebook talking about the 10th, apparently, is where the post-game press conference is, and making us drive out of our way to go pick. Apparently, they've never heard of mail or FedEx or UPS or anything out in Eugene. So anyway, we'll get to all that on Saturday night, I'm sure.
Well, I assume. I've seen Oregon beat writers and media saying that this is the biggest game they've ever had at Autzen Stadium. So I suppose there is a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to how do you prepare for this as a facility that's never hosted a game of this magnitude before. So I'm willing to give a little bit of grace, but the reality is, I know that the U.S. Postal Service still works. So to send parking passes when we've known for 3 weeks who's going to the game, it seems like that probably should have been done.
All right. Well, we can get to that on a different show. That seems like more of a road.
We can just live stream the entire experience of us driving to Eugene.
No,
that's a real behind the scenes look, the real notebook.
Nobody wants that. They do want us to get into 3 things about Ohio State and Oregon, the matchup. And the first one for you, Berm, is one thing about this game that you are absolutely certain is going to happen.
Someone is going to lose, and it's not going to matter.
Wow. Okay.
It's going to matter in the moment, of course, but that really is the thing that I've been thinking about all week. Like the mental adjustment that we have to make in media, the adjustment that fans have to make to in the 12 playoff team era. Like, this game is obviously important. You want to go out there and win. You want to go out there and dominate. Ohio State doesn't want to ever lose a game. Oregon doesn't either. But you have to know that if you lose this game, as long as you lose it with dignity, as long as you lose it without something crazy happening as far as injuries, or as long as you lose it without getting your doors blown off or looking completely woefully unprepared, this game is part one of a process that whichever team loses is going to happen regardless. Ohio State or Oregon is going to be in the playoff this year with a loss. So this may be part one of a 3-game matchup between these two teams this year, the way that the schedule could shake out. So I just think that's the thing. Like, it sounds stupid. One of these teams is going to lose, obviously, but how you respond to this loss, and like, especially for Ohio State with a pretty tough slate coming up in the next few weeks after it. Like, if the Buckeyes were to lose this game, the most important thing is not letting this game beat you twice. If that's the reality. You can go out to Oregon. We've seen all the stats about the 2 time zones and the 1 and 8. And, this is a much different environment than Ohio State's ever played in as far as the travel goes, as far as the 53, we play in 53,000 seat stadiums in the Big Ten, but it's like Maryland, and it's 48%, Terps fans, it's 52% Ohio State fans, and the Terps fans are all gone by the end of the first. So then it's 100%. This is not going to be that situation. So it is going to be a substantially different vibe. And I think just the reality of the college football era, the changes in the college football era are for the first time this season really going to be in our face.
Yeah, I mean, I think clearly you're right about that, and we've known that this was coming for a while, that getting into the playoff is not going to require being unbeaten, and it's not gonna require winning the Big Ten, but I would say, like, I'm more inclined to think that there are key stakes attached for the Buckeyes than I would be normally because of if all the things that we've said about this year being so pivotal for Ryan Day's tenure and the perception of his success. If that part is correct, if winning the Big Ten is paramount for this year, if you want to not have to play in uh, the 5 versus 12 round, if you don't want to have an on-campus site and play an extra game in the playoff, then I think you do need to go on the road and beat Oregon. That there is more of a penalty, not to in terms of missing the playoff. Like I don't think that that's going to happen. Ohio State could lose to both Oregon and Penn State and still go to the playoff, but I don't. That's not what this team is playing for, and I think they wouldn't accept a loss to Oregon in the immediate aftermath and come home like that would be pretty demoralizing to have to then need help to go and win the piece of hardware in Indianapolis that this team so desperately wants and that nobody on this roster has claimed before. They could still do that with the loss to Oregon. As you said, they might very well rematch. These are if they're the two best teams in this league in a month's time, then we'll probably see them match up again no matter what happens on Saturday. But I'm inclined to think that there is more at stake in this game that is not tied up into the playoff. And for the overall health of the program, that wouldn't be beneficial for Ohio State to go drop it.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you want to go out there and lose this game. I'm just saying that immediately in the aftermath of whatever team loses, they're going to have to readjust their thinking very quickly because, yes, all those things you just said are true, but it's also true that it means very little in the big picture of can you still win a national championship?
Yeah.
And that is what Ohio State and Oregon are playing for. Yes, Ohio State is going to say they're playing for the Big Ten championship, playing to beat Michigan. All those things are true also, but this season is about, as Denzel Burke would tell you over and over, natty or bust. And so as long as you go out there and don't lay an egg, I think that either team is going to be able to come out of this feeling like, hey, we're where we need to be. I've seen some Ohio State fans, oh, it's a top 5 matchup for Ryan Day. We know he's going to lose, which is ridiculous to say because Ohio State is the better team. But, Oregon is going to be prepared. And that is a game that's going to have some haymakers thrown by both sides early. And I frankly can't wait. But it's nice to be able to cover a game and not be like, oh, this game, if they lose this game, the season's over. You know what I mean? Like that's the first time we've really ever been able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are definitely benefits to that for the sanity of the people in the program, let alone people who cover it or are fans of it. I mean, I think there have been times that they have been too over the top maniacally focused on one game and what it means, and it's been to the detriment of the program. So I don't disagree with anything you said. I just think I'm not approaching Saturday night specifically as like, well, the outcome doesn't matter because I think with what the Buckeyes specifically, I can't vouch for Oregon. Is a Big Ten championship absolutely mission critical to the success of that program and the way it views itself? I would say probably not. I don't know. I've never covered Oregon. I've never lived there. I didn't go to the school there. None of that. I don't know. I've covered Ohio State long enough to know that while, yes, the national championship and natty or bust is the ultimate goal, much of Ohio State's identity is tied up in winning the Big Ten this year and certainly beating Michigan, but that's a side mission. And I don't think that they want to back in. I don't think that they want to need help down the stretch. And Ryan Day, I think he said that specifically on Tuesday. He's always very careful with his words. He said this is a game where you control your own destiny. He's already talking about that in terms of the Big Ten title race, not the national title race, because everyone has their destiny in their hands at this point, except for maybe Missouri, which had one of those losses that you talked about that should be disqualifying at Texas A&M. But like I do think that this is more of a must win is not the term for it, but vital win for Ohio State than I would normally say, keeping in mind all the other considerations that you brought up for the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I agree. It is a vital game for Ryan Day, for his reputation, for his legacy, for a number of reasons. I mean, it's ironically, with Oregon being in the Big Ten for the first year, and with what Dan Lanning and the Ducks did against Washington multiple times a year ago, like it's also, I mean, it's as big a game for them as I think it could be, because they're trying to prove that they belong on a national stage, when as or if they are just a fashion show. So it'll be fun.
Yeah. All right, here's one thing that I am absolutely certain of, and that is if Oregon, they have a very talented defensive front. If they if they are at a stalemate against Ohio State's offensive line and they have to try and blitz to create pressure on Will Howard, they will absolutely get destroyed by the Buckeyes. Will Howard, his interception on Saturday did come against pressure, but it didn't come against the blitz. And he was 9 for 10 again. His numbers when blitzed this year are bonkers, off the charts. And 8 of his touchdowns have come in those situations. If Oregon decides that they need to bring a 5th or 6th rusher to get home and then leave themselves in one-on-one matchups with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka or Carnell Tate, with Will Howard's ability to diagnose where the blitz is coming from and where his pressure release valve is, that's nobody is going to have success blitzing Ohio State, in my opinion, and definitely not Oregon.
No, I tend to agree. I think Oregon is the one team that probably will be confident enough in its front four that they will try to not blitz. But I also think they're the one team that's confident enough in their secondary, which is a veteran group. Not a lot of guys that have played at Oregon very long, but a veteran group. And they'll feel confident like they can try to man up Ohio State. We'll see how that plays out, because that's really where the game's going to be won. It's the decision making by Will Howard and Dylan Gabriel, and whichever guy makes the fewest mistakes, I think, will win the game.
Okay. You were not with us on Snap Judgments on Tuesday, so I think thing number 2 is fitting. That what is the most interesting thing you heard from the Buckeyes as they get ready for Saturday night?
I mean, I don't know that it was one thing. It was just this constant reiteration from Will Howard of, okay, so it was one thing, because it does tie back into what you just said. It was not the Kenny Rogers references that Will Howard was making, but it was the decision-making process between taking chances and taking your medicine. And what I'm curious about that is that something Will has been contemplating himself? Is that a conversation he's had with his coaches? Is it because hearing him talk about it, it did not seem like it was off the cuff. This seems like it has been a very important part of his growth process as a quarterback. And I just, again, I'm a broken record, but I love listening to Will Howard talk about the game because he's so excited about it. But you can tell, like this kid was being very, very insightful about the decision that he's made, the decision to throw the ball against Iowa in that interception, because he feels so confident in the guys he has around him. And how do you not put your team in a bad situation just because you feel like you can get away with it? And it's what I asked Justin Zwick on the Roosters show on Monday. Like, at what point do you trust your receivers too much? At what point do you trust that someone's going to bail you out too much? And CJ Stroud, I don't think he ever hit that point. Like, CJ was just like, I'm going to trust these guys implicitly. And he had years of practice with his receivers and the opportunity to work on the offense for 3 years. Will Howard has not had that, as Ryan Day talked about on Tuesday. He's only been in the program. Ryan Day said 6 months, but it's been closer to 10. But they've only spent 6 months together, roughly. And so I just think the constant growth of Will Howard in the decision making process is really the most important thing, and that's why I just said it already. I think that whoever makes the fewest mistakes wins this game. But Will Howard thinking about those mistakes is something that I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because I think it could be viewed either way.
Well, in the situation when he threw the interception, it was a 2-minute drill where you can be more aggressive, need to be more aggressive. Like, that's the time when you roll the dice instead of walking away. So I don't know that was a damning decision by him, as much as there was pressure right up in his face. He knew that they had a limited amount of opportunity and time to go make a play. Like, comparing that to even the one in the opener, I don't think that I have a big problem with it, and I don't think it was a bad decision or even tying into holding them or folding them. I think the situation probably called for him to make that throw, and it didn't work out.
No, I think the decision was right. The throw was wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
you just got to throw that as far as you can out of bounds in that situation. You aren't, and that's what I'm saying. Like he believes that his receivers are going to make that catch, and so at some point, it's better to just say, "I'm going to throw it 15 yards out of bounds." And in that, there was that play, but also the one sack he took in the third quarter where he rolled out
Yeah.
and had a guy open if he wanted to throw the ball, but then he just held onto it and took the sack. Like you're out of the pocket. You can just throw it out of bounds. There's
Yeah.
two guys over there. Just, it's those little things that I think are the difference between a guy that is obviously wanting to be a playmaker, but also needing to understand that in an offense like this one, you're going to get those yards back. With this Ohio State receivers, with this running back group, like it's okay to be 3rd and 10 sometimes. Like you don't need, like you can't get 3rd and 10 if you turn the ball over, I guess. So,
Do you think that he actually listens to the gambler?
he seems like a good old country bumpkin. I bet his family's got some ties to the gambler.
I mean, how that
R.I.P. to
song
a real
came
one.
out, what, 60 years ago?
I don't think it came out that long ago. I think it came out after I was born.
Oh, okay. I don't
But
know.
I mean, I
It's
don't.
it's still
I
he's
Nope. It
20.
came out the year I was born, so 1978. So
Oh, really giving away the deets
I mean,
there.
it's, you've heard the song "The Gambler." You weren't born in 1978, so I mean, I think it's reasonable to assume that Will Howard has seen "Lonesome Dove" or something else. That I mean, he's from Downington,
Huh.
PA. I'm sure they probably had "Lonesome Dove" playing on the multiplex screens every weekend.
I bet he hasn't seen Lonesome Dove, but that gives
Little
us
House on the
some.
Prairie, Lonesome Dove, just like a cinematic masterpieces.
I guess that gives us something to ask him the next time on the Notebook if he's watched Lonesome Dove, because
Yeah.
I bet the answer is no. Something else that he said, though, I mentioned it on Snap Judgments, just casually dropping it in there. Well, Emeka can line up in the backfield and he can run the football too. Like, yeah, I know. And I'm very much excited to see it. I thought that was the most interesting thing that I heard. I don't need to rehash all that. If you want to hear me talk about it more, along with Bill, that's on Snappy Jays from Tuesday. But thing number 3, Berm, you gave it away. We're traveling. We're going out to Portland and Salem. What do you think is the thing that you're most excited or annoyed to do on this, our first road trip out to the Pacific Northwest to cover a football game?
As someone who was fortunate enough to be in the Pacific Northwest for a handful of opportunities in the summers of 2015, 16, 17, when the opening was out there, like I loved being out in Portland. I thought it was an amazing place. We didn't really ever leave Portland, so I'm excited to see the rest of Oregon like that. But I assume it's going to be similar to like Penn State, where it's kind of one road in, one road out, and that's going to be annoying. But the thing that I guess I'm least looking forward to is the tent post game. Like, I don't know how that's possible. I don't even know when they say we're going to have a tent for post game for the visitors. I don't even know what that means. But we haven't really talked about where we're going food wise or brewery wise or anything like that. Is there a brewery in Portland or Salem that you're like, we've got to go to this one? Because I'm sure you've got some in your national network of brewery brothers. I'm sure there's people who have given you a place you got to check out. What is it? Where are we going? Where are we going for road beers?
I mean, 2 things that are true. I am always prepared, and I never tell you where we're going until we get there. Why would I do that now? I'm not going to break
I
the
don't know.
tradition.
It's a fishing expedition here.
I know.
We going to Steeplejack?
No, you're not going to be able to just go crack this code right now while you're searching in the middle of the show.
We're going to Stormbreaker.
Stormbreaker is good. We'll probably go to Stormbreaker at some point. But that, need more than one stop.
Occidental.
That's why. What?
Occidental. I've been there.
See, the reason that we can't do road breaks on Thursday night is because we actually should make multiple stops, and we've become so old that we just target one brewery and then go back to the hotel because we're no longer spring chickens the way that we once were. But Thursday night we gotta we got to go all out because that's what we're supposed to do. It's a
I'm
new
sure that
experience.
the brewery scene in Salem is probably not quite as good as it is in Portland, right?
I don't expect that it will be. And we will have road breaks on Friday night, brought to you by Card Collector 2. We're going to have bold predictions on the podcast daily for Friday. Once we figure out logistically how we want to set that up, once we arrive in Oregon and we can get together with Bill Landis to record all that, because we got way more content coming as we get ready for the biggest game of the season. Did it with 3 things on a Thursday episode. We appreciate you for joining us. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. This has been the Podcast Daily. We'll talk to you later.